Texas Democrats about to lose their seats. Trump is now the hunter instead of the hunted. And God bless, football is back. This week on the David Rutherford Show. What's up, everybody? I am stoked to be back on the air with you. I hope you all have had an interesting week as I had a little trip up to New Jersey to speak to a group up there, but I got to spend some time with my good friend Brian. Just really want to congratulate him on the new advancement in his life and what's going on out there, brother. Thank you so much for a great week. I also want to thank the school, my kids' school, because guess what? They're getting ready to go back to school here next week, and I am fired up about that. Not that I don't love being around my kids all the time, but for teenage girls during summer, it can be a little overwhelming at times, but I'm proud of them. I love them. We had a great summer, but I am stoked school is about ready to start. I'm sure you're stoked too, because your kids are going back as well. All right. So this week has been an another incredible week in the news. I pulled out a few stories that I really wanted to touch on and bring to everyone's attention. Now, it's pretty common knowledge if you were to take 5 seconds and just look at the congressional district maps of places like New York or Massachusetts or Illinois or California, that you would see there would be a pretty substantial imbalance to how many Democratic seats there are versus how many Republican seats. Now, if you're not familiar how this takes place, it's a result of when the United States conducts a census every 10 years. The last census that was conducted was pretty recent, and what ends up happening is that they don't separate American citizens and illegal people that are in the country. And so what ends up happening, it's just a quantifiable number that's a result of how many people that actually live in these areas. Well, guess what? If you've been importing by the millions illegal aliens into particular districts, let's say districts or states that have traditionally been pretty substantially red in the past, and you want to flip those places, i.e., Texas, then what do? You put them into these major metropolitan areas. All you need is to fill those places up. The census comes out. Now, all of a sudden, you get 2 or 3 new district appointed seats to those areas, and now all of a sudden you begin to flip the states.
Well, thank God that didn't happen. Can you imagine?
I think that was the intention. I mean, obviously, what happens when you put 30,000 Haitians in some place in Ohio, or you put a couple 100,000 people in different districts in Tampa area and Florida or whatever it might be, man. I think it was blatant. I mean, unless you don't pay attention, 100% blatant. Well, guess what's happening? The guy who I have tremendous admiration for, the Attorney General of Texas, Mr. Ken Paxton, who, by the way, defeated an impeachment trial last year or the year before, where it wasn't the House Democrats in Texas that went after him. It was actually the House Republicans that went after him. That the underlying theory is that it was the old Bush guard that wanted to get rid of Ken Paxton. And so what they do is they tried to impeach him on these trumped up charges, which was hilarious because in the trial of this thing, the 5 people came out and all 5 of them said, yeah, we basically made up what we said and what launched the impeachment. So I think Ken Paxton is riding a pretty substantial high. In particular now. In fact, he just announced that he'll be running for Texas Senate, which is awesome. I think that's a great thing, especially against John Cornyn, who is been labeled a rhino pretty extensively, and in fact has come out in opposition to what he's done. Well, what happened last week was in Texas, in the House, they passed a bill that was going to redistrict Texas. gaining as few as 5 new seats for Republicans all the way up to 8 new seats in these different major metropolitan areas. Well, they came out and they voted and they called for a redistrict that was going to cost the Democrat seats. So what did they do? What did the Democrats do? In one of their great ways that how they work, well, if they don't like something legislatively, they boycott it. And so 13 Democratic congressmen from Texas decided, well, we're just not going to show up for the major House vote. We're not going to do it. And they did it a few times. And then finally, it was like, you better show up or else. Well, they bombed. And some of them went to Illinois. Some of them went to these other places to make a stance. And they couldn't do this vote. Now, there also are other bills that are on the table that they're bringing up as mission critical for Texas to pass. And some of these things, yeah, I think they're pretty important. But redistricting is always what politicians think about, especially on the national scale, right? And so these 13 Democratic state representatives basically are getting busted for breaking House quorums, right? Trying to block this Republican-led redistricting plan, right? And these people are John Busey III, District 136, Austin; Lulu Flores, District 51, Austin; Vicki Goodwin, 47, Austin; Jessica Gonzalez, 104, Dallas; Gina Hinosa, 49, Austin; Suleiman Lalani, 76, Sugarland; Christina Morales, 145, Houston; Mahela Plesa, 70, Dallas; Ana Maria Rodriguez Ramos, 102, Richardson; Ron Reynolds, 27, Missouri City; James Telesario, I think that's it. Man, I'm butchering this, aren't I, buddy? Telelarco, 50, Austin. Sorry about that, sir. Chris Turner, 101, Grand Prairie; and Gene Wu, 137, Houston. So these people basically said, we're just not going to show up for the vote. Now, some people might think, well, that's an effective way to not bring to fruition a final vote that's going to cost seats. However, Ken Paxton is not somebody to be trifled with. So what did he do? He followed a motion to the Texas Supreme Court to essentially remove these people from their positions as a state representative. Why don't you play that little audio for me right now of the options that Ken Paxton had as he told in this interview?
What are some of the other avenues that you can share with us? I realize you may not want to share all of your strategy publicly.
Well, there were 3. There was the initial option, which I thought was the best, which is lock the doors while they were there. The speaker could have done that. He did not do that, knowing if I had any anticipation that they were leaving, I would have locked the doors and they would have been trapped. So we would have had to vote. That would have been the simplest, fastest way to do it. We didn't do it. Second possible way is, arrest them on their way out. We didn't do that either. They went to jurisdictions that are not friendly to Texas Republicans. And so, we don't have jurisdictional ability to get to them in these more liberal states, having gone to Illinois, New York, and supposedly Massachusetts. So wait them out is that option now, since you can't arrest them. And the final option is this possibility, which has never been done before. We came up with the idea a few years ago. And this is what we're trying to figure out if we can do, which is to do this procedure that would basically force them out of office. It would have to be determined by court. We don't make the determination. The court would have to decide that they were not performing their duties and that they needed to be removed.
All right. So there you heard it from the mouth himself. They had 3 other options that the Republicans who ran did not do, and so it came down to this. And if you could also, Jordy, post the cover of that document that he sent to the Supreme Court. Now, this is a novel, new way of handling business, never been done before, to basically get rid of these people in their seats. And that's a pretty amazing move to make. Now, what my mind goes to automatically is, if this is a tactic that brings awareness to what the Republicans seem to be moving into. And I would bet, especially in those completely blue states with their gerrymandered districts, and also right now, Jordy, could you put up the map of Illinois? Cool. And when you look at that map of Illinois, you see, I mean, that's what they do, right? I think both parties have been doing that since the dawn of the concept of gerrymandering came into place. Nobody's innocent of doing this. Republicans do it, Democrats do it. That's the way it works. Well, if you're going to fight fire with fire, that's a tool you can use. But I don't think anybody imagined that you would have this large a contingent that would, walk out and prevent the quorums from taking place just because you don't like what the outcomes are going to be. That's also a first in a heavy way. I think there's been examples of that, but not down to that final vote, and certainly not a filing with a Supreme Court of any state. My problem is this is going to bring a ton of publicity. It's going to invigorate Democrats in all states around the country, but it's also, I think, going to invigorate federal congressmen, Democratic congressmen, to do the same type of thing with much of what Trump's policy initiatives are going to be coming up. We've got another big vote coming up there in the fall and onward. So is this going to be the status quo if either side of the House decides that they just don't want to participate in the voting? So is it a good precedent on either side? No. Do I respect what Ken Paxton is having to do? Yes. I think there's probably other ways to do it. But again, if you're dealing with an organization in terms of the Democratic National Party or National Committee who plays hardball, then yeah, I think you have to play hardball with hardball. So although I wish it wouldn't have come to this, it definitely seems like a good tactic to employ. All right, next story. The next story kind of lends itself to what I was just talking about. It's the idea of Trump going from being hunted to now being the hunter. And that's been a very common title that has been all over X with a lot of the people that have reshared and reposted these new ideas. And the one that really is remarkable to me, I think, was inevitable considering the magnitude of lawfare, flagrant lawfare that was waged against him over the last 8 years, in particular the last 5 years from the Biden administration, in particular from their DOJ, Jack Smith, and then their proteges or their henchmen, Letitia James, Fani Willis, and others who filed these incredible cases against Trump and his team. So what happened this week is Pam Bondi essentially said, we're going to go after Letitia James and Adam Schiff. Now, what's interesting to me is that not only were they they're in there, there's ethic complaints for certain things that they've done, but the majority of what this is about is for something that's incredibly ironic, if you will, right? What is the one thing that everybody always says when we're talking about corruption of any kind? Follow the money. In this particular case, what the most famous one, I think, is back in the day when Al Capone finally had to go to jail for what? For tax evasion. Well, what we have now is the Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice is going after Letitia James and Adam Schiff for mortgage fraud. And I mean, think about that. I mean, think about of all the things that the two of them could get busted for, right? Adam Schiff falsifying, basically lying for 4 straight years about Russia collusion, just getting on national television and basically straight up saying, yep, Trump is a Russian spy and getting away with that. And then also his participation in what he did on the January 6th committee and basically hiding information that would have exonerated, hundreds of people from those being arrested after in the January 6th crackdown that resulted. And then there's Letitia James and all the different lawsuits she brought. My favorite one is where she tried to convince a jury that Donald Trump illegally inflated his value so he could, cajole these banks to giving him these loans. Basically, my favorite one was saying that Mar-a-Lago is only worth $14 or $18 million, man. I mean, it's the most pristine property in all of South Florida. And they're saying
the door handles are worth $14 million.
I've been there and I agree with you. Oh my God, it's incredible. So what do we have and how is this going to take place? And I think, these are kind of what is going on. So here's a brief rundown. So you've got civil rights violations related to Trump and his NRA cases. The DOJ convened a grand jury in Albany, New York, to investigate whether James violated President Trump's civil rights through her office's civil fraud lawsuit against him and his business. The lawsuit, initiated in 2022, resulted in a $454 million judgment against Trump for fraudulently inflating his net worth to deceive leaders. And so what they came back is, and then the FBI, the mortgage fraud allegations, the FBI and the U.S. Attorney Office in Albany are investigating James for alleged mortgage fraud tied to real estate transactions, particularly a Virginia home purchase, a criminal referral from the Federal Housing Finance Agency in April 2025, initiated by Trump-appointed FHFA Director William Pulte, alleges that James falsified records in claiming a Virginia property as her primary residence to secure favorable long-term loans. All right. Again, tit for tat is politics. I think, it'll be interesting to see this case play out. I wish they could really just focus on the legality of the charges that she brought against Trump and really stay there. I think these mortgage fraud things are a little bit of a distraction. It's an easy way to bring him into the headlines and tear him down a little bit. But again, after when you go back to Letitia James running for office, and she says, my sole mission, if I'm elected, will be to bring Donald Trump down. You got to go back to these things, because I think the challenge for everybody in particular, you look at what Democrats are saying and they're losing their minds over this. They're like, this is the king emerging. This is Donald Trump becoming, taking the reins and manipulating the justice system. And one of the oldest tactics in the book is the Democratic Party is you accuse the other guys of exactly what you have done to distract them. And we certainly know that these cases brought by Letitia James, Robert Smith, and Fani Willis were bogus in every way, shape, or form. Adam Schiff is the other guy, right? And Adam Schiff is under federal criminal investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland for alleged mortgage fraud. The investigation, reported by Fox News and other sources, stems from a criminal referral by who? The Federal Housing Finance Agency and the Department of Justice in May 2025. The allegations center around Schiff's alleged misrepresentation of his primary residence to secure more favorable mortgage terms on properties in California and Maryland. All right. Again, Adam Schiff is a guy, if you go back and you look at the magnitude with which he went after Trump in not only Russiagate, he was a primary guy on the news day in and day out for years, basically saying Trump is a Russian spy. He's a Russian asset. And what's crazy now, what we know is that he knew all of that was false. He knew all the documents, the Russiagate, whole thing. He knew it was false. He'd been briefed because he was the head of the Foreign Intelligence Committee. So he knew what was completely inaccurate, but he ran with it. Why? Because it served him politically. The other aspect is really the impeachment stuff that was brought out of January 6th, Trump incitement of a riot and trying to alter the finality of the elections, which we also now are. I don't think we fully know what's going on, but we certainly know there were shenanigans taking place. I just think, I always think back to when Christopher Wray was being under subpoena and was answering questions, and the congressman from Louisiana basically said how many informants, paid informants, or actual operatives, FBI operatives were in the crowd on January 6th, and he wouldn't answer the question. All right. And what he estimated what he had said is that there was at least 200 for sure that he'd found in their investigation. So I think there's a lot more that's going to come out from the January 6th fiasco. And I think also we haven't even begun to scratch the surface on the 2020 election fiasco. So what is Trump doing? He's playing hardball now. He's going to go after these people that essentially wanted to imprison him for 700 and whatever, how many years, and wanted to bankrupt him and bankrupt his family, bankrupt everybody in his family, to indict all of his friends, to tear him down. So what did Pam Bondi do? She assigned Ed Martin as a special prosecutor. Now, his background, he's a former interim U.S. District Attorney General for District of Columbia, but he was shut down by Senator Tom Tillis, Republican from North Carolina, citing his lack of prosecutorial experience and controversial political activities. Now, he was a strong component that the January 6th thing was an inside job planned by Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, and the whole rest of the crew in order to really put the final nail in the coffin on Trump for insurrection and what that whole thing was. And again, we'll know more about that. That's definitely going to come out. So this guy, Ed Martin, they put him as a special prosecutor. Now, from the interviews I've listened to him, this guy is definitely going to have an axe to grind, as does Trump himself. So it'll be interesting to see what results out of this special counsel investigation. All right. I think when you look at this type of thing and you look at the current state of where we are politically, I think all of this is pretty much, it's inevitable, right? Anytime, you invest hundreds of millions of dollars into trying to destroy your political enemy, you better finish the job. And I think they did everything up into, and there's no conclusive evidence that anybody within our government had anything to do with the 2 assassination attempts. Certainly, there's been some really interesting reporting, again, by Mike Benz and Rolf's connection to Ukraine and recruiting and some NGOs, and that's interesting. I think there's a lot of questions about the kid who shot Trump. We still haven't seen his phone, his contacts in his phone, and who he was talking to on these foreign chat apps. So there's a lot to be understood. And I think as you hear me describe this, it stacks up, man. All these things just keep stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking. And the weight of this concise and consolidated conspiracy to get rid of Donald Trump, this is true. Like they went after him harder than anything I've ever seen or heard about in the history of our country. And even the other kind of on a side note, Project Veritas is suggesting that Fani Willis in the RICO case she brought against Trump and like 20 other people down in Fulton County, Georgia, that she was actually corresponding not only with Biden's DOJ, but now we're understanding there were some emails, and Jordy, we put up those 2 emails that I sent you. And if you see these, there's references to people in her team making contact with Bill Barr and his team. Now, Bill Barr is a former attorney general under Trump's first term, who basically is, got all kinds of just nefariousness that's being linked to him now with this. Also, the fact that he was the AG when Epstein died. It was his father that hired Epstein back at the school. He worked at the Dalton School and that relationship. And, they have some other, bizarre relationships there. So you begin to think, my God, the magnitude of effort that was employed to try and prevent Donald Trump from running in the first place, becoming president in the first term, tearing him down with the Mueller investigation, 2 impeachment votes there, then the 2020 fiasco of elections, right? Trying to then tear him down after that through January 6th and the treason indictments, and then 4 straight years of investigations emerging from all these attorney generals. That's a lot. And I want you to just for 1 minute think if you had just one of these things that was happening to you in your life, just one event of these, even if you were one of the co-defendants in the Fulton County case for conspiracy, this RICO case to change the election outcomes in Georgia, which are suspect. And if you want to do a deep dive in there, you just go in and you look at some of the testimony that came out last year of how mail-in ballots and photographs that are supposed to correlate, that those with signature correlation, like 230,000+ missing. There's no correlated evidence of photographs of the signature matches. I mean, it was an abomination. And we also know Fannie Wells and her lover, who she had hired for a couple $1 million, I think it was, he was traveling up to meet with Biden's DOJ as well, too. So this is a conspiracy. There's no doubt about it. And if you had just one aspect of this conspiracy coming after you, would you have been able to take it? And then the greater question, the question that you really have to ask yourself is this. If you got through it, and then we're in a position to go after the people that tried to destroy you, what would you do? That's the real question. So it'll be fascinating to watch all of this combined with all of the subpoenas that James Comer issued for Clinton and Comey and Brennan in the fall that are coming up here. All these, we're going to see a cascade of filings that I think is going to regrettably intensify the divide of the American public, which is not what needs to happen ultimately. I think there's no way in hell anybody's going to talk Trump and his team out of doing this. I just think revenge is a dish best served cold. And I think it is an inevitability that he's going to go after the people that went after him. This is where we are in American politics. All right. Now, on a positive note, I want to say this is kind of a personal thing that I'm really happy to see. There had been some skirmishes that had kicked off again between the country of Azerbaijan and Armenia over the last 5 years. And also, this is a conflict that dates way back. This goes way, way back. You can even go back to the Armenian genocide back in the day with Turkey and the Turks, but really between Armenia and what was originally called the Caucasian Tatars, also known as the Azerbaijanis. And the fighting that's been taking place as far back as to 1905 through the Soviet area, it kind of chilled. And then in 89, it started up again in several challenges. Now, when I was at Blackwater, we got a contract to go work in Azerbaijan. And honest to God, and before I left a few days after, getting on that, I didn't know what Azerbaijan was. I had heard loosely about the Armenian genocide, but I didn't know anything. And so when I went out there, for the 10 months on and off I worked out there, I got a full indoctrination as to this conflict. And, when you think about these small countries in this area and why they've been fighting for so long, and again, it just goes back to these polarized regions, a difference of opinions, difference of religion, and just how far people are willing to go to fight for what they believe is theirs. And I think this is common throughout history and throughout the world. And the whole conflict is really around this Nagorno-Karabakh. God, man, saying these names is just brutal for me, Jordy. In this region, which is many consider to be a humanitarian crisis. So I really commend Trump for bringing some peace to this right now. We saw him bring some peace to India and Pakistan a few months ago. We did a show on that. He brought a ceasefire that appears to be somewhat stable, although there was a gentleman who went on Tucker Carlson last week who basically said that there's still a lot of conflict going on in Gaza right now, even as humanitarian aid is somewhat being distributed. There's still a ceasefire there. And then on top of that, on August 15th, we just found out that Trump is going to meet with Putin in Alaska to discuss Ukrainian peace. Now, Jordy, will you play that one clip of the guy, the Russian diplomat, who basically said, we've agreed to America's terms about some of the area and what they were saying about peace or ceasefire peace?
Было предложение со стороны американцев, которое нам представляется вполне приемлемым.
А где возможное место встречи какое?
Я пока не могу говорить, хотя оно, в принципе, определено.
All right. So you heard this guy say this. Man, that was the first real positive thing in quite a while. I mean, remember the last time that there was this negotiation, the Russian delegation went to meet with, I forget, it was in Turkey, I think, to meet with the Ukrainians, and they essentially walked in, stood up, and walked out, and nothing took place. Why? Because Zelensky had done his little European tour and had raised, I think, like a $5 billion or so commitment from European countries to fund NATO and its contributions. We've seen a tremendous amount of arms and military vehicles being pushed into Ukraine recently. And if you've also seen, there's the Russians have been really holding and advancing that eastern front of all those that area that they have claimed all the way as far back as I think 2008 that this was a part of Mother Russia, and we saw several things transpire not only through the Maidan Revolution but afterwards as well in these regions, and that's Crimea, the Donbass, and Luhansk regions, right? So hopefully. What we'll see is a major negotiation, a major announcement transpire that can really get us closer to peace. I think all of you should pay attention to, if you can, is how Zelensky reacts to this. He's already been on X a little bit, saying this is a sovereign matter. This is Ukraine's decision, which he's said throughout. But we'll pay close attention to that. So, Jordy.
What's up?
That's a lot going on, man.
Dude, my brain is buzzing.
Yours and mine both. But I think what we have is we have, one, we're seeing, I think within the MAGA movement and within the Republican Party, one of the things is like, hey, let's start playing hardball. I think that's always been a critique of the Republican Party, is that there hasn't been enough hardball plans in the last 16 or so years. And now finally what we're seeing in particular from Ken Paxton is people are beginning to play a little hardball. What's interesting to me is the pushback that's coming from Republican senators, right? And Republican House congressional leaders as well, too, on some of this stuff. So
you think it's because if you're a conservative, you're kind of naturally by default playing defense. You're trying to conserve, right? You're trying to prevent the changes that are happening from the progressive or liberal wing of things. Their job in a functioning system would be to try to say, hey, we're on a path right now, but we need to go this different direction. And a kind of a conservative job or responsibility is to say, no, stick to the plan. This is what's working. We got to stay right here. So they're kind of on defense by default.
I think that's materially true. I think that's from a theoretical component. Yeah, conservatism, liberalism, I think that is. But I think what I've seen is there's an entrenched component, an old school guard within the Republican Party that is anti-MAGA at their heart. And what they want to do is also push back against the policy and the evolution of the party, because they're losing the traditional grip they had on it for a long, long period of time. And that grip is waning rapidly. And so what we're seeing is the final throes of their command and control because the momentum that the Trump administration and the MAGA movement are having are substantial. Now, there still is.
Do you think they need to come after these people in the terms of, if we don't come back and hit them and play hardball just like they played with us, this is just going to keep happening? Is that kind of what you think the motivation is?
I am 100% convinced that in 26 or 28 or whenever it is in the future, should the current controllers of the Democratic Party, which are pretty progressive in nature, should they come back in, we will see what we saw under the Biden administration amplified by magnitude of, however many that is, right? We will see illegal immigration skyrocket. We'll see the expansion of the Supreme Court. We'll see getting rid of the filibuster. We'll see, all kinds of things that they will go all in on, right? I just think that's the nature of politics right now. We're in a cycle of extremes. And what makes me nervous is when you get into a cycle of extremes combined with a potential risk of economic calamity, because we just crossed over $37 trillion in debt. I think, there's a substantial recipe for some problems, right? So, I think, we're going to try and break down some of those major problems here in the future on shows to really kind of, I keep getting hit up, will you kind of do a State of the Union? I think we're 200 days into Trump's first year in his term, and people have kind of been hitting me up. Hey, let's get a State of the Union where you think the greatest concerns we have. And, I've had people ask me about terror cells, violence, the political gerrymandering, ICE raids, So I think what we'll do is we'll start working on a show for y'all that I address some of the core issues, what I believe we need to pay attention in particular as we go back into the fall uptick in political and geopolitical the environment. So, but before we go, I just want to say to you, Jordy, and to all other sports fanatics such as me, thank God football is back. Absolutely, thank God football is back. I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am as a former football player myself. The months in between are a bit arduous to stay fixated. I think I've had my fill of tennis. I think I've had my fill of green dildos. Actually, that did not come out right at all. Belay my last, everybody. Completely belay my last. That's not what I meant. What I meant is the distraction of the WNBA and what's going on with their shenanigans. And boy, that was horrible. That was about as big a mistake, a faux pas, as I've ever made.
We're clipping that out. That's going to live in
infamy. People are going to laugh at that one. All right. So football's back. And the one I really want to just highlight for all the haters out there, and Jordy, if you could start playing that, right now for me, that'd be great. And that's Shedeur Sanders and the play he had with the Cleveland Browns. I mean, the guy was on fire. I think everybody and their brother wanted this guy to go in, throw multiple interceptions, get sacked 3 times. There was a great sack by a former Nebraska defensive lineman, go Nebraska. But he looked really good on the field. He was light on his feet. He was reading the field well. He did some magic dancing like he does to escape what looked like certain sacks. He really is an incredibly talented athlete. Now, I will say this, Cleveland Browns has 5 other big-time quarterbacks, so this will be the quarterback battle to watch for sure. But again, we're back. Football's back. College football is starting soon. We got the first game of the season. One of the first games of the season is going to be between Texas and Ohio State. So first time in a long time, number 1 plays number 2 right to start off. I love that because Penn State is ranked 1 in some polls, but in most other polls, they're number 3. And I think that'll knock one of them out of the way. Penn State can go in and hopefully move forward. They and have a great season and finish as number 1. So yeah, football's back, Jordy. Hoo-yah.
Dude, it's going to save us. It's going to save us. Can you believe that, August is typically a slow news month? This is slow.
I think all that's just out the window. It's all gone. We are in a time where news is just coming at us like a tsunami. And so that's why, Jordy and I, we are going to stay focused and committed to really trying to contextualize all this, to bring a little flashbang of truth to you all and you listening. And we are so appreciative of every second that you give us listening to what we're sharing with you. We are so grateful and thankful. We're thankful to iHeartMedia. We're especially thankful to Clay, Travis, and Buck Sexton being in their network. Thank you all so much for your confidence in us and your support of us. And we're thankful for you guys. So if you give us a help, subscribe, send alert notifications. But the one thing we always ask, if you find a show that is impactful on you, share it with a friend. As we incorporate not only news, we try and drill down on bigger stories. We have great interviews on all different types of stories, from coaches to players to athletes to operators to nonprofits. We really try and bring a diversified concept to y'all so you can learn as we learn too. And then obviously the motivational content that we sprinkle in there for you to try and lift you up in the face of all these challenging news cycles and stories. So we're grateful. Again, you can follow us on all major social media platforms. The David Rutherford Show on X, it's D Rutherford Show. Because as Jordy was telling me the other day, your name is just too damn long. Rutherford is just too damn long. Sorry, I love my name. Long line of Rutherford, Scottish heritage. So it is what it is. You can follow me at Team Frog Logic. I'm pretty much only on X and then on Instagram. So yeah, thank you so much. God bless you, and Booyah football.